First I tried to do what Eliud Kipchoge did and I ended up collapsing. Then I tried to do what Bradley Wiggins did and I ended up collapsing. But this time I tried to do what Steve Redgrave did and things went a little bit differently. No, they didn't. I still ended up collapsing. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Welcome to another video exploring the gigantic gap between normal people and elite athletes. Today it's going to be the turn of Sir Steve Redgrave, 5 times Olympic gold medalist rower and one of the greatest Olympians of all time. He is your elite athlete and I am your normal person. And don't be fooled by the new backdrop. That just says more about my desire to get out of the house at the weekend and avoid doing any DIY than it does my sporting ability. I am for the most part only slightly above average. Although, where I do differ from the norm is my size. Quite tall, quite heavy. Against Kipchoge and Wiggins, that was a serious disadvantage. But this time, I'm heading into the challenge feeling like I might be built a bit more appropriately for it than running and cycling. And I wasn't alone, because when I reached out to Sir Steve and told him I was going to be doing this, he emailed back. Yes, seriously, he emailed back. And amongst the bits of advice and good wishes that he offered, I read between the lines and could sense a little bit of fear. So what's the challenge? 2,000 metres on a Concept 2 rower. If you've ever been in the gym, you've probably seen one of these, often sat unused in the corner. But they are the bread and butter of land-based training for people who row. Also amazing for anybody's cardio because they incorporate so many different muscle groups all at once. But that also makes them pretty fatiguing, hence why they're often sat unused in the corner. So doing a 2K on one of these is regarded as the distance to assess your rowing fitness. For example, it's the main distance that the indoor rowing championships compete over. What is a good time on one of these for 2K? I did a bit of research and the general opinion was that after a bit of practice and with some okay underlying fitness, around 8 minutes was okay for a novice time. That means you're covering 500 metres every 2 minutes. You'll often hear people talking about the split time. That is the time most prominently displayed on the screen, and that is what it is showing you. If you keep going at whatever speed you're currently doing, how quickly will you do 500 metres? Hold that split at 2 minutes, you get your 2K in 8 minutes. If you go incredibly fast for a short burst, you might get that split down to 1.5 minutes. But much like a car showing 100 miles an hour, it's just a snapshot of that moment. Doesn't mean you're actually going to do 500 metres in 1.5 minutes. The same as you wouldn't actually drive your car 100 miles an hour if you only saw that speed momentarily.
I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
So 8 minutes novice, 7 minutes 30 intermediate, sub 7 advanced, and 6 minutes 30 elite. They're times for someone of my age, almost 50. I'll put up on the screen the times for other ages so you can see the difference. Now, as you might expect, Steve Redgrave is a bit useful on a rowing machine. He won the 91 Indoor Championships and has a PB that he set in 96 of 5 minutes 46. So what can I do? I'm not too bad on a rower, and I'm in a rowing machine. I've never rowed a rowing boat. I've kayaked with my dog, but I don't think that counts. When I was a teenager, I worked in a gym with a rowing machine, and I would muck about on one for fun. I was even part of a team that held the 24-hour world record until we got beat about 4 days later by the army. But from then until a few months ago, I never used one. I was far too busy, eating donuts mostly. And it was only a few weeks ago I did my first actual 2K row in decades. And just by virtue of being a big lump, fist bump donuts, did a 6:49, not too shabby. Now the row machine features in the High Rocks competition that I did in January and will be doing again in April. So lately I've been practicing on it for that. But High Rocks is only a 1 kilometre row. So when I decided to do this challenge, I had another go at 2K last week, really going for it. And I mean really going for it. I have no idea about technique or pacing. I've never been taught how to row. I just pulled the bar as hard as possible and tried not to vomit. And at this point, I remembered why I'd quit fitness for eating things all those years ago. Donuts don't leave you rolling around on the floor like a baby. Or if they do, it's in the privacy of your own home. Got a 6:30 though. Now 6:30 is pretty good, but it's still a long way from Redgrave good. But then I discovered 2 things that gave me a little bit of hope. Firstly, the last time Steve did a 2K test, it was just before the Sydney Olympics. He was rubbish by his standards and did a 6:15. As he said to me in his email, yes, seriously, he emailed me, he struggled to complete it, his worst time ever. I even found some footage of him talking about it.
Now the last 2 kilometre test that I ever did was in 2000 on the 23rd of March. I know that very well because it's my birthday, and it was probably my worst ever test that I ever did. And I think my time was about 6 minutes 15. So why don't you try and beat that?
So 6:15, a bit closer to my 6:30. And here's another time I came across. 6 minutes 22. That's the time Sir Bradley Wiggins did at the Indoor Championships a couple of years ago, when he packed on a load of weight and tried his hand at rowing, having given up cycling. Now, given how my attempt to cycle like him went, this could be my chance for payback. And as it's a Sunday, the gym will be nice and quiet this afternoon. Ideal rolling around like a baby time. So I now have a couple of targets: Steve Redgrave at his absolute worst and Bradley Wiggins at his best. To be honest, both times probably still out of reach, as somebody who has used the machine literally a handful of times in the last 30 years, had the only cheat day that I'm allowing myself in the run up to April's High Rocks last night. That was half of Wagamama's and 2 tubs of ice cream. And he's way older than either of those two guys were when they set their times. But it's all for fun. It's just to show you how amazing these top athletes are. It's not really about me at all. It's not like I went and got some professional coaching from a rower to try and actually get close to those times. Yes, that's exactly what I did. Wiggins is going down. So this is Cam Buchan, ex-Team GB rower, still competes internationally, and fellow YouTuber, and Scottish, and tall, and gets dressed in the dark. I sent him the video of me rowing, and I asked for some advice. I don't actually think that he might just come back and say, no need, you're a natural. He said, yeah, you need some advice. And he is the man to give it. His PB is 5:49. Now, he was incredibly generous with his time and suggested lots of things to work on going forward that over time will help me. But there was one thing that he said that I thought, oh, this could make an instant improvement. Here's a bit of our conversation.
What you want to look at is sort of the angle of your shin. If you're up at the catch and you're sort of if you're over your shin and your shin's sort of leaning forward, you have to, you're a bigger guy as well. So you have to get to the catch and then overcome that angle and then push away.
I am hunched over it, and then
yeah,
exploding.
And that's playing into that, using your upper body, using your arms, using the shoulders and back. Popular opinion of rowing is it's very upper body, and in reality, it's very lower body. So instead of producing force with the smaller muscles, the arms, the shoulders, you're producing the force with the bigger muscles, which can produce the same force, but with less effort.
This was a light bulb moment for me. I've always assumed that reaching as far forward as possible meant I pulled longer strokes and therefore better. But if I have to crumple up into a ball to start the pull like that, it's a weak position that I don't have to waste energy unraveling from. Imagine trying to start a deadlift from a position like that, all rounded and hunched over instead of a strong, solid starting point. So basically, pull a little shorter with less extreme reaching forward, but then pull more efficiently and more powerfully. Do less, get more. Now, that was a few days ago, and I've only used the rower once since then. Did a long, steady 10K. Tried to incorporate the new technique, but to be honest, it's a bit hard to tell at a slower pace if it was going to make much difference. So I'm now going to go grab Jenna, my supportive wife, a camera, and go find out what happens over 2K. And yes, he really did email. What a nice bloke. It's made my day. I'm back with footage and I've watched it. People often moan that I wave my arms around too much in these videos. Well, not today, because I still can't feel them. So how did it go at the gym? Actually, first, let's just quickly talk website. People are always asking in the comments on here or DMs over on Instagram about the gear that I use. My bike, my trainers, the gadgets. For example, the gym bag that I lug around everywhere with me. Well, you need ask no more, because the link is now up to where I got it on the website. Now, this video has been sponsored by Squarespace, which is a massive help to me and is perfect because I've used them to design my own site. So if you saw my David Goggins video last week, you know that Joe and I took literally 24 hours to go from no idea how to do anything on a website to we have a website. Jenna and I sat down Thursday night knowing nothing about websites. I mean nothing. I'm still trying to figure out how to edit videos. I've got little stickers on my keyboard that tell me what the buttons do. And since then, we've just sat down for a couple of hours every now and then and added more and more bits to it, which for Squarespace is stupidly easy. In fact, we were sat on the sofa watching a movie the other day, and Jen was updating things on the site using the app on her mobile phone, and then asked me what I thought. I said it's the Rocky and Apollo training montage. They're doing sprints on the beach. It's amazing. meant the website. So now we have the big upcoming events that I'm running in on there, where and when they are, links to the organisers if you want to go and do them. Got a bunch of the favourite bits of kit that I use, and the pages are going to grow and grow over time as more and more things get added, and to do that is very easy. We just drop pictures on there of what we want, add the text that we need, pick the font, the colour, job done. So just like all the stuff on the website are things that I use and like and therefore happily recommend, Squarespace is the same. And of course it's not just the website, they have you covered for your domain needs, set up blogs, run e-commerce stuff, whatever you need. Go check out squarespace.com for a free trial when you want to launch your site, squarespace.com/Mark Lewis, and get yourself 10% off. And if there's something that you see me using in the videos at any point, get in touch. I only really know what stuff to put on there that's of interest when people tell me what they're interested in. Right, 2,000 meters. Now, if you need any idea of how seriously I was taking this, I'm warming up like a professional athlete. Did at least a minute or two, but that's incredibly boring. So let's just get going. Now, going to recap on Wiggins and Redgrave's numbers, but just quickly, I've got to say that the technique that Cam suggested of stopping before I crumple up in a ball and then pulling from a stronger starting position was game changing. If you row, this might sound like me saying that I've just realised that running without taking stupidly long strides is more efficient. Of course it is. But sometimes, until the obvious gets pointed out to you, it's not obvious. One downside of it though was that I was going too fast at first, doing around 1:30 splits, and almost struggling to slow that down. I just felt really powerful on each stroke. But 1:30 is just too quick to maintain. So let's talk splits and Redgrave and Wiggins. Remember I said that a 2-minute split gets you 8 minutes overall. Well, a 1:45 gets you 7 minutes and a 1:30 gets you 6. Which means for Redgrave's 5:46, he was pulling 1:26.5, way under 1:30 all the way. I can't do that. But for his 6:15, he's averaged just under 1:34. Wiggins' 6:22 is a 1:35.5. So fun for you to try if you use a rowing machine at the gym. Have a go at getting the split down to those 1:30s, which a lot of people can do if you're big and heavy especially. But then imagine holding it for over 6 minutes. It's a disgusting feeling. Right, I go through the first 500 metres in a 1:32.6, so inside my targets, but a bit too inside. My plan had been around 1:35 and then have something to kick. This speed doesn't leave a lot of kick at the end. So while I'm plodding on with that, I actually dug out some footage of Cam rowing, and when you watch it against my last 6:30 row, the most obvious place to see the difference in technique is the seat. With me, it comes and always touches my feet. That's how squashed up I get at the start of the stroke. With Cam, there's a big gap there. So I'm just going into and then having to come out of a really weakened, inefficient position. Now, it wasn't solved in today's row, but it was much better and it felt so much better. Actually, I say it felt better. What it felt was more leg-based. I used to use my upper body to pull myself out of that starting position, but here I was just pushing away my legs and focusing on that. Focusing on my legs as the main driver. So my legs hurt more than normal, but Cam had told me they might do, but as a bigger muscle, they can just sustain that hurt longer than the smaller muscles up top. So just ignore the pain. Now the good news is I get to 1,000 metres in around 1:35 for the second 500, which is where I should be. It puts me just over 3 minutes for the 1K. Good for high rocks. Problem here is that mentally I know I've gone too fast. The first 500 was just a smidge too exhausting. So right now I'm struggling to pull it down to 1:35 from where it's drifting up to 1:38s. Wiggins, still a target, but I know that Redgrave's 6:15 is not happening. I need to get back on 1:35 and stay there. There's just no way. So Redgrave looks like he might win this one. And if you're thinking, well, of course he does, how deluded are you to think that he wouldn't? Well, very, it seems. My thinking was, we're actually quite similar physically. Redgrave competed at just over 6'4", so I got about 1.5 inches on him in height. He was 104 kilos when racing. Right now I'm 97, I'm down a bit because of high rocks, but not miles off him. And he had possibly the finest cardiovascular endurance of any athlete ever. And I'm obviously, I've got 1.5 inches on him. I don't think you can underestimate the difference that 1.5 inches makes. None of it helping. I am dying here.
Coming up to 500 meters to go. Split time 1:38, so not on target.
Nice commentary from Jenna. 500 metres left, 1:38. The whole thing's horrific. And what's worse is that my screen tells me I'm on track for a 6:24, which means with a burst of power, sprint home, I might catch Wiggins with his 6:22, but I might be out of bursts. It feels very close and incredibly far away all at once. My body wants to collapse back into old habits, I can tell, because A, I can feel my shoulders just dropping forward at the start of every stroke. They're just shot. And B, Jenna is telling me,
Slouch, don't slouch.
these last couple of 100 metres of a 2K are like nothing else. It's just a movement that leaves no muscle untapped. Running, cycling, you can exhaust your legs, but half of you is still reasonably fine. Here, nothing is fine. Didn't get Redgrave, didn't get Wiggins. 6 minutes 24.6. 5.5 seconds off my previous time though, and only my third proper 2K row. The ones done before these would have been, I don't know, way back, before the Spice Girls broke up. So thanks to Cam, 5.5 seconds is 5.5 seconds. I got to be happy with that. And what did we learn? We learned you can roll around the floor of my gym 10 minutes before closing on a Sunday and nobody is going to come and check if you're okay. I expect there's somebody out on the front desk thinking, I am out of here soon. I'm not waiting on an ambulance to turn up for that, idiot. What else? Being big and tall helps you row fast, but not that fast. And the world's greatest Olympian on his worst day is better than me, which is kind of the point of these videos, to show the just huge disparity between above average and very, very elite. Right, a big thank you to Cam for his advice, and a huge thank you to Sir Steve. Now that we're email buddies, just feel free to check in anytime you like. If you want any kayaking with your dog tips, then just get yourself back down to Henley. Me and Nixon will look after you. Sir Bradley, it is now 2-0 to you. What could Bradley Wiggins do that I could beat him at? I've actually got no idea. Come down the river with a dog. Join me and Steve. Please be rubbish. Okay, like and subscribe, please. And go check out the website. And if you're wondering, am I gutted that I didn't take the opportunity to start selling those homemade gym vests while the Gymshark founder was in nappies and get the jump on him and his billion-dollar empire? Yeah, a little bit.